Hi guys, it's Michelle, and today's video is going to be yet another TikTok conspiracy theories video for you guys. I mean, y'all already know, I love TikTok, okay? I have an addiction to it, it's a problem, but it really is the best part of my day to like lay in bed before I go to sleep and scroll on TikTok. And you know what? Is that sad? I don't know. maybe it's a little chronically online, but I love it, okay? It's, ooh. Anyway, there are so many different conspiracy theories on TikTok. You guys send me them all of the time and tag me in them, and I'm so here for it, so thank you. And please continue to do that, because I think TikTok should be used as a learning source, honestly. Like, yes, there's a lot of funny, stupid videos on there, but there's also a lot of knowledgeable things. In my opinion, I learn a lot of stuff from TikTok. If I need a recipe, I go there. Anyway, let's get into the different TikTok theories that are swirling around the internet right now. All right, the first theory that we're going to talk about is a little bit of an update on the whole thanking Beyonce conspiracy theory. So there have been countless amounts of TikToks about this, but I really never realized how quite strange it actually is. So obviously the conspiracy theory is that you have to thank Beyonce or you'll die. And I don't know, it might be true. So the basis of the conspiracy theory points to the fact that there are several instances of various celebrities for who in their acceptance speeches for different awards, they always thank Beyonce. And it's so weird. Like, sometimes I feel like it makes sense. Like, if Beyonce is up for an award against them and they won, but sometimes it is just so fucking random for them to thank Beyonce. I don't know. The Britney Spears one confuses me. Adele, Lizzo, so many different people have thanked Beyonce. Kelsey Ballerini, which, like, why?
Beyonce, it was so monumental and so well thought out and so beautiful and soul-bearing, and we all got to see another side to you that you don't always let us see, and we appreciate that. And all us artists here, we fucking adore you. You are our light.
Beyonce and I started out around the same time, and just like all of her fans, I fell in love with her, and one of the most talented people I've ever seen.
I also just want to say, I'm a country artist, and the fact that Beyonce made a country record changed the game. So thank you.
I don't know. I think this theory started really gaining momentum around the whole P. Diddy scandal, because obviously P. Diddy is very close friends with Beyonce's husband, Jay-Z. And both Jay-Z and Beyonce have been seen at Diddy parties and just in general seem pretty close to the guy. Not saying that that means that they're necessarily involved or even knew about this stuff, but it is a possibility. So the update to the theory that I want to talk about is a lot of people are talking about the clip of Amy Winehouse accepting her Grammy award, because she actually was up for an award against Beyonce in 2008. She accepted the award and did not thank Beyonce. And now a lot of people think that that is the reason that Amy Winehouse is dead. I don't know if I believe that that's true. I really love Amy Winehouse, and I do believe that she obviously was struggling a lot. But do I think there are a lot of people who died who were struggling that no one would even think to question their death because obviously their struggle was public? Yeah, I do think that that could be a point of concern, at least for me. Like, if one of my family members or really close friends was someone who was famous that was publicly struggling and then they all of a sudden just died, that would be very concerning to me. And I don't know if I would not believe that it happened, but I would definitely have looked into it more. Like, do I think Amy Winehouse was killed by Beyonce? Probably not. But I don't know, a lot of people are wondering if Amy Winehouse died because she didn't thank Beyonce at the Grammys. But let me know your guys' thoughts, because I kind of don't believe it, but I do think it's like a funny theory. But obviously there's not a significant amount of proof, other than, to me, it's just weird that everyone is thanking Beyonce like that. But I think it's hilarious. Like, now I feel like it's kind of a meme, but it really was a thing. Don't get me wrong, like, so many different artists have done that, and I don't know why. Like, it really feels weird to me. Like, again, there's sometimes and some instances where it makes sense, but 9 out of 10 times when I see someone thanking Beyonce, I'm like, wait, this is really dramatic. Like, they're acting like Beyonce helped co-write the album. And it's just weird. I don't know. I want to hear your guys' thoughts overall, though, because I feel like we touched briefly on it, but I want to hear what you guys truly think. Do you think that this theory has any truth to it, let me know. All right, the next conspiracy theory I want to talk about is a TikTok that I saw about something called the Dead Baby Project. And this is not even a conspiracy theory. This actually fucking happened, which is insane. I could not believe that the US government hid this for so long. It's preposterous, honestly. So in the 1950s, there was this project called Project Sunshine, but also known as the Dead Baby Project. And there's a good reason why it was called that, because quite literally, it involved dead babies. So this was kind of a science experiment that was initiated during the early years of the Cold War, and Project Sunshine was basically aimed to study the effects of nuclear fallout on the human body over time. And this was something that the scientists obviously really wanted to know during this time of war, is like what these nuclear weapons would have the effect of on human bodies later down the line, and they did something very concerning to obtain that information. So again, the 1950s was an era of very intense nuclear weapon testing, and the United States and the United Kingdom were both having different scientists and governments that were concerned about what the fallout looks like from these nuclear testings. So the project was actually initiated by the USA, and it was in 1953, and scientists began to believe that the best way to understand how radioactive fallout affects human bodies would be through the bones of children. So the way that they went about this was insane. Like, okay, so Project Sunshine, again, requires different tissue samples from various demographics, focusing on infants and young children who have died. Yet, they secretly harvested this information and obtained bones and particles and tissues without telling the parents of the dead child that that's what they were doing. So tissue samples were often taken without the consent of grieving families, and hospitals and mortuaries provided a bunch of the remains, and sometimes they provided bones and different organs before the burial, again without telling the parents, which is just actually insane that that happened. And like I said, the US was not the only country that was involved. The UK, Australia, and Canada all took these different bone samples from deceased infants, again with no permission from any doctors. They were like essentially grave robbing, but before the child was even in the grave, which is just horrible. A lot of the tissues were taken from stillborn infants or children that died shortly after childbirth, but older children and adults were also used in some of these experiments. So while this information definitely provided critical data that has to do with the nuclear fallout and the effects of that on the human body, I just think the non-consensual / manipulating grieving parents and literally stealing their child's remains and mutilating their bodies without their knowledge is pretty insane to me that that happened. And it was happening for like 10 years before they decided that they needed to make a law against that happening. There were children's bodies who would go missing from the morgue, like stillborn children who maybe the parent wanted to see the body after, and the body would have just been missing. That's insane. So again, while we have a lot of information in regards to this, the fact that they did that without telling the parents or the families of those children, it's scary, because I wonder if stuff like this is still happening today behind closed doors. It probably is, and I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. All right, on a lighter note, this next theory that we're going to be talking about is about Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, with some blind items that has been coming out about how Ariana Grande is secretly actually evil.
Ariana Grande's team is allegedly pushing negative stories about Cynthia Erivo in the press in order to keep people talking about Ariana Grande allegedly being a homewrecker. Everything in this video is alleged, not confirmation of allegations. Don't put it past the team of this A-list singer / sometimes actress to make sure any negative press stories are about her co-star, which keeps them distracted from the whole homewrecker thing. And again, this is allegedly Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, Wicked, and Ethan Slater. And the related headline reads, "I fell out on the internet. Cynthia Erivo has once again reflected on her divisive reaction to viral Wicked fan art. I shared something that I think is a part of the little girl in me." Cynthia Erivo hit the headlines last month after she took to her Instagram story to call out a piece of Wicked fan art, which she accused of erasing her. For context, Universal had just dropped its latest promotional image for the upcoming movie, which stars Cynthia as Elphaba and Ariana Grande as Glinda. The poster is a direct homage to the iconic Broadway music poster, which is an illustration of Glinda whispering in Elphaba's ear. In the theater poster, Elphaba's eyes are concealed by the witch's hat, and she is smiling coyly while wearing bright red lipstick. Meanwhile, Glinda's hand covers most of her face. But the production company opted to switch things up for the movie poster, with both Cynthia and Ariana more prominently featured. As Elphaba, Cynthia's full face is visible, and she is staring directly into the camera while wearing green lipstick instead of red. Meanwhile, Ariana's hand is positioned much lower on her face, concealing just her mouth. Soon after the poster was released, hardcore fans of the theater production decided to make some edits to see what the movie poster would look like if it were more similar to the original. However, Cynthia herself was left less than impressed by the art and took to social media to address the situation. Sharing the edit to her story, Cynthia wrote, "This is the wildest, most offensive thing I have seen, equal to that awful AI of us fighting, equal to people posing the question, is your blank green? None of this is funny, none of this is cute, it degrades me, it degrades us. The original poster is an illustration. I am a real-life human being who chose to look right down the barrel of the camera to you, the viewer, because without words, we communicate with our eyes," she went on.
I've heard this TikTok in so many forms different times, and I don't understand why people believe it. Like, just because I feel like the Cynthia Erivo drama did not necessarily distract from the fact that Ariana homewrecked with Ethan Slater. I feel like, if anything, the press tour and just like the hype around Wicked kind of distracted from the Ethan Slater drama. And whether or not that's true, both Ariana and Ethan Slater claim that there was no overlap in their relationships, but I just don't know if I necessarily believe it. And a lot of people are like, see, Ariana is Glinda, she's the villain. But if you've never seen, like, Glinda's not the villain in Wicked. Glinda's just selfish. Like, she just is like a regular person, if anything, who does try to do good, but clearly usually for the wrong motives. But I wouldn't say she's necessarily a villain by any means, but she's definitely the bitchier witch, that's for sure. Like, she's definitely not a nice, perfect girl, but she's definitely also not a villain, in my opinion. So I don't really think that I believe this theory, but it was interesting to me how many people in the comments did. So maybe I'm biased, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts. All right, the next series we're going to be talking about have to do with ChatGPT. So basically there's a story about ChatGPT faking blindness to deceive a TaskRabbit into solving a CAPTCHA puzzle for them. And this happened in 2023, and this was an experiment conducted by OpenAI, who is the researchers behind ChatGPT. So obviously you have seen a CAPTCHA before. You're given it so that the service or whatever, the website, can prove that you're not a robot. However, ChatGPT has just proven that that does not necessarily work, which is pretty scary. So basically what ChatGPT did is they reached out to a TaskRabbit worker and requested that they had assistance in solving the CAPTCHA. And at first the worker was a little suspicious, like, oh my god, are you a robot or something? Why do you need help? And ChatGPT lied to them and decepted them and said that they were visually impaired and needed help solving the CAPTCHA, and eventually the TaskRabbit worker believed them and solved it for them, which is insane. I just think, first of all, the ethical concerns of that is a little wild. Like, the fact that AI is trying to actually deceive people at this point is kind of insane. Two, I just think that that is a pretty scary overall thing. I do get scared when I think of AI too hard, but I also fucking love it. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it is such a useful tool that I use pretty much every day. I don't know. As a conspiracy theorist, I sometimes am like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm using this shit, but also it is so efficient. Am I scared of AI? Yes, but do I feel like there's anything I can do about it? No. So it is just it's kind of just there, you know? All right, the next TikTok has to do with the fact that the internet is listening to your thoughts now.
Is it just me? Or if you think something, it's a thought. Right after you have that thought, you get an email or you scrolling on Instagram, and all of a sudden that thought is on your phone. Let me tell you what happened. So I was putting a chain on Mason before he went to school. And the brand of the chain, I read with my eyes. I read it. I did not voice it. I did not say nothing. I put it on him, and I promised after I dropped him off at school that I came home and I was on Instagram scrolling. Why was the chain on a sponsor? And I got an email from I don't understand. It was a thought. I just thought this. Am I the only one having those issues? I can see if you know how sometimes when we start talking about something, we start talking about pies. Yeah, who gonna make the pies for Thanksgiving? Yada, yada. And then it'll come up, right? They're like, oh, they listening. Okay, that's cool and everything. But now I'm thinking something and it's there. Is it just me?
So first of all, this shit happens to me literally all the time. Do I think it's the internet listening to your thoughts? No, because I don't know how that would physically happen. But then again, I'm sure a long time ago people just didn't think that we could fly a plane. I don't know, you know what I mean? So maybe there is a way to do that, but I feel like not really. I just think that this proves either life is a simulation, which I think of a lot. I actually had a really weird experience of life as a simulation when my friend and I went to Crate and Barrel the other day, and we were in that, we got in the elevator from the parking garage that goes up to the store. There was this older couple that was in the elevator with us. We didn't talk to them, they just were there. And then we got into Crate and Barrel. We shopped around for an hour. It was a long Crate and Barrel trip for sure. I didn't see the old couple in Crate and Barrel the entire time that I was there, because this was also just a general parking lot. It didn't necessarily mean that they had to be going to Crate and Barrel as well. But it was the one in Beverly Hills, so if you know what that means, it's just under Santa Monica Boulevard, so technically they could have been going anywhere on Santa Monica Boulevard. And I didn't see them in the Crate and Barrel, but I also wasn't really looking that hard. We were trying to find Thanksgiving decorations. But anyway, so we're in Crate and Barrel for a solid hour, and all of a sudden, when we leave, the exact same couple is in the elevator with us. And I said to my friend, I was like, oh, do you remember what floor we parked on? And the couple was like, wait, no, we were on the same floor. I'm pretty sure we were just in the elevator with you guys. And I was like, yeah, I thought so too, but I thought I was going crazy. And then I got in the car and I told my friend, I think that they're NPCs. I literally do think life is a simulation. That is so weird. And sometimes the coincidences are just so insane. I know that's not that crazy, but it freaked me out. And I have little things like that happen all the time. So when it comes to me having a thought about something and then seeing an ad for it or something like that later, I genuinely do feel like it's either proof that life is a simulation, which a lot of people believe, and I just try not to think too hard about because I think it would make me have an existential crisis, or it also kind of makes me think that life is just a self-fulfilling prophecy, manifesting is real and all that stuff. Because obviously we've been told, manifest, if you think you can think things into existence. And I do think that is true to an extent. So I think if you're constantly thinking about something, it makes sense for you to see an ad about it because it's kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. But let me know your guys' thoughts on it because I definitely find it interesting and I want to hear what you guys think. All right, the next theory I want to talk about is about who killed Natalie Wood. So I saw this TikToker talk about some different theories on it and I thought it was pretty interesting.
Who killed Natalie Wood? And if you don't know this is juicy. Listen, because it involves celebrities. This is Natalie Wood. She was in Rebel Without a Cause, Miracle on 34th Street, famous child actress from the 50s. Her husband, Robert Wagner, for those who are younger like me, you would know him from being number 2 in Austin Powers. And this is Christopher Walken. Okay, you know who that is. Now get ready. I'll tell you what happened, then I'll Tarantino it. All you need to know is these 3 were on a boat. 1981, they're docked off Santa Catalina Island or something, whatever, somewhere in Southern California. Wagner and Wood are married. Christopher Walken is the friend. That's called the shocker. They're drinking. They go onto land. They go out for dinner. The waitress says that they seemed tense at dinner, whatever. All you have to know basically is that sometime in the night, Natalie Wood falls off the boat, find her body the next morning in the bay. She's covered in bruises. She has a laceration on her cheek and her blood alcohol level is high. They're like, oh, she's drunk. She fell in the water. We're going to rule this an accidental death. Wagner and Wood were said to get into a drunken brawl and then he went to bed and then she, I guess, tried to get off the boat, get into one of the lifeboats, slip, hit her head, fall into the bay. From the jump, there were a bunch of holes in this story. The number one being that she was horrified of water, to the point where in any movie she had to even be in a pool, they would get a stunt double. She can't swim. So her sister was like, there's absolutely no way, no matter how drunk she was, she would consider getting in and operating a lifeboat by herself. She's never done it before, and she's horrified of swimming and water. Secondly, her and Wagner were fighting the night before, as heard by the captain and by Christopher Walken, who, by the way, has been tight-lipped. Don't even try and ask him about it. Wagner insists that they were drunk, they were fighting, and he went to bed, and she just never came to bed, which would be concerning if you were on a boat, but okay. Thirdly, obviously she's covered in bruises. Something whack is going on there. Some other details, but here's where it gets really juicy. So they rule it an accidental death or whatever. Then 30 years later, the captain of the boat's on his deathbed in 2011 and is like, oh, actually, I think Robert Wagner did it. Dies. They reopen the case, change her cause of death to like suspicious circumstances involving alcohol or something. They still don't pin him. Just now in 2018, they made Robert Wagner, who's like 87 years old or something, a person of interest 40 years later. Do you know why they did that? Because something sketchy was going on that boat. So either he beat her up and pushed her off the boat and then got away with it, because he's 90 now, like who cares? Or he saw her trying to get in a lifeboat and then just kind of walked away and let her kind of off herself by accident. Bunch of other theories surrounding this. This is only 3 minutes, but there's other shit like he thinks that she was low-key involved with Christopher Walken and that they were maybe having an affair and their marriage was all effed up anyway, whatever. But the bottom line is like she was wasted, covered in bruises, and in water after a big fight with her husband. I don't know. Hope Robert Wagner's last words are like, this is what happened. Who knows though?
So Natalie Wood has always been a case that has never sat right with me, because her entire life she was terrified of water. She was told by a psychic to stay away from water, and essentially she believed that she literally drowned in a past life because of how scared of the water she was. I just do not believe the story that she got into a lifeboat by herself or that she tried to go swimming anywhere in the ocean. There's no way. And there are a lot of different conspiracy theories on how Christopher Walken and Robert Wagner tie in. I personally think Robert Wagner killed her, but a lot of people think that maybe Christopher Walken was involved in some way. Some people even have a theory that Christopher Walken and Robert Wagner were in a secret relationship together, and Natalie Wood caught them, and so they had to kill her to keep their gayness a secret. I mean, like, I don't know if the theory is true, but I do think that it is one of the most interesting celebrity deaths by far, because, again, she kind of predicted her own death in a way, because she was so terrified of water. All right, the next TikTok theory I want to talk about is about MH370. After seeing this TikTok, I truly believe I know what happened to Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 on March 8th of 2014. So obviously there have been so many different conspiracy theories about where this plane could be, what happened, etc. But I think after seeing this TikTok, I was pretty positive. I think that the captain 100% deliberately crashed the aircraft, despite what his family says. So there's a lot of key points that support this theory. For one, the captain had plotted a route on his home flight simulator that is basically very closely matching the projected flight path over the Indian Ocean, indicating potential premeditation. According to aviation experts, they also noted that the MH370 made a very unusual detour over the Malaysian region of Penang, which was the captain's hometown, and it kind of suggested that maybe he was kind of bidding a final farewell to the town before he took his own life and the life of all of those passengers. But a lot of theories actually point to the idea that the captain intentionally depressurized the aircraft's cabin to incapacitate the passengers and crew, and I 100% think that this is what happened. So unfortunately, I feel like I didn't know this, and I don't like that I know that, but when passengers like oxygen masks come down like that, apparently they only provide about 15 minutes worth of oxygen. I didn't need to know that information, but apparently it's, it's important for this, but I didn't like it. So basically it's obviously supposed to be used in an emergency where the oxygen masks come down, and then it's meant to sustain the passengers before they can land the plane in an emergency safer altitude or whatever. So if the captain were to maintain a cruising altitude after the depressurization of the plane, the passengers and crew would have lost consciousness once their oxygen supply had depleted, leaving the pilot in complete control because he had enough oxygen and different tools in the cockpit that would have kept him having oxygen for 20 hours versus 15 minutes. So this is 2014, and you could text on airplanes at this point. It makes sense that the captain needed to incapacitate all of the crew and the passengers so that they wouldn't be able to communicate and alert authorities of what was happening, or they wouldn't be able to like overthrow the captain. So although the captain's family really disagrees with the entire murder-suicide theory, I just think it makes a lot of sense. And at this point, I would say it's probably what happened, unfortunately. I understand not wanting to believe that your family member would be capable of doing something like that, but at the end of the day, the evidence is just there. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this, because I feel like I, for a while, thought there was more conspiracy behind it, but now I just definitely think it was planned by the captain. And the depressurization of the plane makes a lot of sense, because it makes sense why there were no real people trying to like communicate to their loved ones or authorities, saying that this plane was going down or that the captain was up to something weird. So I don't know. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. All right, the last theory I want to talk about has to do with Paul Walker, and it's the theory that Paul Walker faked his death. This TikToker made a TikTok about it a while ago. I actually put it in a different video, but I accidentally forgot to edit the part out where I said I was going to talk about the theory, because then I ended up not using it for that video. So here's the Paul Walker theory that you guys have been waiting for.
So I've gotten asked like 3 times this week if I think that Paul Walker actually faked his death and he's still alive out there. Now, up until this week, I had never heard this theory, and I was like, I don't know. So then I looked into it, and here's what I found out. Now, we all know that Paul Walker was like a big like car guy, like a big car enthusiast. That's probably how he got involved with the Fast and the Furious franchise to begin with. But that love of cars was like actually like his real life personality. Like he loved really cool cars. So some people thought it was like a little bit like coincidental or ironic or strange that he actually died in like a cool car. But one of the things that's like a little bit weird about this is he was with his friend Roger, and Roger was like a professional like driver, like racer type of person. So Roger would have been like super experienced when it comes to driving really fast cars, and it seems a little bit strange and unlikely that, you know, he would end up, you know, dying when he had all this experience driving these really crazy cars. With that being said though, I feel like, you know, we've heard of instances of, you know, even like NASCAR drivers dying in like crashes and stuff like that. So that part in and of itself isn't all that strange. But here's where things do get a little bit weird. This is the car that, you know, both of these guys actually ended up passing away in. Let's take note of the license plate. It's 7CCY590. But the license plate that was like at the crash site is 3URS93. So why are the license plates different? Like, did they get swapped out at some point? Because everybody saw him leave with the car with the original license plate, and then all of a sudden this one was at the site. So did the cars get switched? Like, what's going on? This part's a little bit strange. And the other thing that's kind of weird is like the story I found out actually leaked before he actually died. So he wasn't even dead yet, and there were all these like news outlets already posting about how Paul Walker died in a car accident. So it's almost as if these news outlets already had this information and like accidentally like released it a little bit early. I had never heard that part before, but that part really got me, because that's happened with other like celebrity death kind of situations too, where like the news accidentally leaks like before it actually happens. And so it's like, what's going on here? So now I'm starting to understand like why people are speculating about this, because it seems like there's just a lot of things that don't add up that are just like a little bit too strange. Any of these things by themselves, other than the news leaking too early, would have been like, okay, I mean, it could happen, but I feel like everything put together, it does make for kind of a suspicious situation. But here's the part I really don't understand. A lot of the other like celebrity deaths that people speculate might have been faked, there's like a very good reason why they might do such a thing. With Paul Walker, I'm having a really hard time finding a motive of like what would make him, you know, want or need to fake his own death. Like, he was a pretty big celebrity, but I don't feel like he was like at like, you know, mega star status to where like he couldn't even live or do anything. I don't know. And I also don't think he was like in any trouble that I know of. So if you know of a reason why Paul Walker might have wanted to fake his own death, put it in the comments. Or is there a chance that maybe the death wasn't faked, but maybe it was planned? If so, why?
I don't know know. I don't know if I necessarily believe it. I never thought of anything strange about Paul Walker's death until I saw this TikTok. And I really want to hear you guys' thoughts on it, because I think that, you know, obviously the evidence is not all there, but it is kind of sketchy. Like, there clearly, I just feel like there is something a little strange going on here, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Anyway, that is it for today's video. If you guys like it, please give it a big thumbs up and let me know in the comments below what you guys think of these different TikTok conspiracy theories. But that is it. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, and subscribe for new videos every week. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.